Friends, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my Virgo August 2025 astrology horoscope forecast. Wow, Virgos, this is eclipse season opened back up again in this very intense Pisces Virgo eclipse cycle that began at the end of 2024, that has been popping up every 4 to 6 months into consciousness to work with the new levels of experience that you are meant to have. We're going to talk about many different things that will affect your August, but the eclipses that actually happen in September may be some of the most intense things that you may have happen in August, because once the sun reaches a critical degree, the gravitational fields of the sun, the moon, and the earth start to get into their readiness for alignment, and the combined forces of the vector that they create in this alignment actually literally warps time and space. I'm not being dramatic. I am not being woo-woo. This is a law of physics. And as I said, we'll talk about many different things, but Einstein's theory of relative gravity talks about how time and space bend around items of mass. This is why heavenly bodies have their own gravitational field. That's why we have our own orbits true to our gravitational field. Of course, there are more factors beyond that. But when the sun, the moon, and the earth align, their individual masses combine as one, increasing the mass. And the law of physics says that the increased mass bends time and space around that mass in even greater ways. Okay? So this is, these things that seem like they're metaphysical that I talk about that can happen with eclipses are actually based on physics. They're based on science. So I will go more into this. I just wanted to give you an introduction of what's to come. We will talk about many lighter things, more superficial transits that will blow by and just be present this month. This is for you if Virgo is your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising sign, or any other Virgo placement you're listening for. What I'm going to talk about here is part of your astrological picture. Very late degree Virgo friends, so birthdays like September 15th through the rest of the sign, or 23 degree Virgo placements through the rest of the sign. I suggest you additionally listen to my Libra reports, as your very late degree friends will benefit from both readings. Okay, so I may jump back and forth a little bit between eclipse intensities and some more superficial things, just as I'm kind of in my flow here. But I want to just reiterate here this: when we have an eclipse. Okay, so the eclipses will be September 7th, a lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Pisces. We'll get back to talking about that later. That will be in the 7th house for you. And then September 21st, we have the solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. Final critical degree. Very important that it's at that degree. And again, we're talking about this in August because there's a window of 4, sometimes even to 8 weeks, but at least 4 to 6 weeks before the actual eclipse, where eclipse season opens and we are in prime time for experiencing it. So to wait until September to discuss the eclipse possibilities are definitely missing the boat, because you are going to have them starting now and you won't know what the heck is going on if I were to wait until September. All right, so basically Virgos are at this state of imminent collapse of a personal identity timeline. All right, because this first house, which is where the Virgo eclipse is happening, that Virgo eclipse, by the way, is a black moon, because August 22nd or 23rd, depending on your time zone, we have a new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo. That's your new moon. This is seed planting for this new identity. And when there's a new moon at 0 degrees, the next moon is going to be 29 degrees. That's going to also be in the same sign. If it's the second new moon in the same sign, it's called a black moon. Okay, so it's very intense. A lot of Virgo energy centered around this. This pending collapse of this personal identity timeline has to do with this eclipse occurring in your first house of your identity. So you might start to feel like you're watching yourself end a version of your life that you hadn't fully admitted was over, or maybe due to forces outside of yourself where you're having no say in them at all. A role that you're playing, a way that you're being, a way that you're known, a way that you're feeling, ways that you're doing things are coming to a close. This doesn't have to be a bad thing. This can be an amazing thing. This can be complete up-leveling with no negative consequences whatsoever. There's nothing in an eclipse time that has to say that the changes that come have to be bad or stressful. Now, intrinsic in change is the possibility of having to say goodbye to things that we're not ready to say goodbye to. And that could be bittersweet, or that could be just straight up sad or tragic. This is a time of great intensity from 2024, at the end of 2024 into 2027 is when this Pisces Virgo eclipse cycle is happening. So, every 4 to 6 months, you're having this upwelling from the unconscious space of these energetics and this alignment. So as I described before, when planets come together and form this vector, it's called a syzygy, S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y. It's a terrible word, but anyway, that's what it is. And so their individual masses kind of energetically merge into being something of a greater mass where time and space is warped around it. Now, what prompted this discussion for me to do this deep dive from the physics? Usually I just go lightly and sprinkle physics concepts in, but I was at the Cincinnati Museum of Science and Natural History, and they had this beautiful floor where when you stepped on it, it was supposed to be showing you what happens in, basically with time and space when an item of mass enters the scene. Of course, in this case, it was me. It was the item of mass. And you step on the floor, and these things that are kind of flying around, I'm putting them in the air here, but they were on the ground. They start forming around you. Okay, so they're showing that this is what happens. This is what creates the gravitational field. So it literally, bodies in the heavens warp time and space. That's why you go into space and time is different. So gravity is not just up and down. We think of gravity as up and down, but it's not. Gravitational fields, are spherical, and it's more complex than that. So this is what happens. And when we have an eclipse lineup, time and space are warped even more. That's why, the changes that can happen are so much more profound, and timelines can shift so much more quickly, because of this law of physics that's occurring at the same time. So any number of things can be happening. It could be a profound identity crisis that turns into a recalibration or reconfiguration. It could be just a straight up leveling, like I talked about before. It could be, with this polarity with the 7th house of relationships, it could be relationships revealing what you were blind to, or blindness in relationships. Virgos tend to be very soft in their relationships from the perspective of, wanting that sensitive emotional connection. And and that could lead you to have blind spots there. And so this is all possible. Also, work and wellness and relationships and health and, your relationship with your body, all of this is under major reconstruction, and you will see this here. Now, I could go on and on about this. We will talk more about it in September. This is a work in process here. But there are more things to discuss. So you are also going to have long-term and short-term energy in your 8th house. This is continuing. Saturn and Neptune just got there in Aries, will be there for a long time. Ceres is moving through. Chiron has been there for a long time. So many Virgos may have been getting lots of tests in the relationship space, woundedness coming up over recent years, new dissolution occurring in deep relationships of finances or money or family. And this is intending to spiritualize your approach to relationships, and Saturn is testing the relationships and building new scaffolding, basically. Saturn is the skeleton of our lives. It rules our skeleton and the whole mineral process that keeps our skeleton intact. And so you're having these relationships tested. So this is happening in a long-term way. Ceres is there in a short-term flow, trying to help you harvest from seeds you planted previously in your money world or your deep, intimate relationship world. And it's helping you to plant seeds now, especially with these new moons. The days are on August 22nd and 23rd, and then, of course, the eclipse itself. You're planting seeds for future growth. And those timelines of how fast they may grow may be super fast. So that's, literally you could imagine a certain car in your driveway, and then next week it could be there. This is a time to really work with vision boards and envisioning outcomes that you want to have. Let your subconscious mind and the mechanisms of your brain, including your reticular activating system, which I talk about periodically, which is the filter that you have in your brain, which is the physiological explanation for manifestation from visualization. All of the things that may be presented or seem like they're what people call woo-woo. I really don't understand why people don't realize that this is all grounded in science, which is why I'm trying to show you this. But in any case, all of this is within your hands. This is where you can take control of something in your life. You might not be able to control your ultimate destiny. You might not be able to control certain things that happen along the way. There may be things happening out of your control that are stressful for you. But what you can do is you can use the tools that you have to help work with the energetics that are at play now to help manifest more of what you want. Your subconscious mind is lit up by the short-term transits of Mercury retrograde and the Sun. Mercury's retrograde until August 11th. It will go direct then, and then as of August 26th, the energy will shift. So you will see this month really being brought into two halves of energy. The first half is the earthworm, where you're deeply going inward and backward, doing things over again and clearing things up and getting things ready for new growth. That's what the earthworm does, is it goes back over soil and makes new soil that's fertile ground for new growth. And also for the first half of the month, you're on the shore and you're having the tides coming in. So if you try to push things out in the first half of the month, this was true for July as well, it's not going to go very far. But you may notice that things you worked on in the past start to come in. So the more observational you are in your efforts in the first half of the month, the less frustration you'll have when things aren't working out because you're trying to push them through in an environment where the tides are coming in. But in the second half of the month, the energetics change significantly. Things start opening up, more clarity comes, more forward motion comes, and we open into our last open period free from personal planet retrogrades for the whole year. Okay, so that happens August 26th. The second half of the month also is full of a lot of great energy, amazing aspects this month. And so if you have important things that you want to do, big decisions, big purchases, big sales, big moves, the second half of the month may bring more clarity and long-term outcomes from the things that you're trying to do. The first half of the month is more short-term, experimental, trying things on. Also important to note is that because this layer of the eclipses is, rolling in, information is coming from these eclipses in the arenas we discussed, in other arenas, and you don't have all the information. So if you try to act in early August, it's really missing the boat, because every day, every week, every sometime, short amount of time, you're going to have more information that would change what you were going to do. So it's better to just, be on the shore and just observe until the time opens up where you can start, doing something with the information that's coming to you. And it is helpful in that way that once that time does come, it will be Virgo time. The sun will join, in the fun of your first house. Mercury will get there, and this will be very much, motivation that you need and the energy you need to make decisions from the stuff that's coming in. You've got a few more days at the beginning of the month where Mars is also in your sign. So, trying to buckle down and get some things done you've been avoiding would be a good idea. And then you've got a couple of months of Mars focusing on your financial sector. So I already talked about kind of your deeply embedded shared financial sector being accentuated in short and long-term ways. But then you're going to have, in a short-term way, Mars accentuating your money sector. So you can run clean up there. It will be in Libra by the time it gets there. And that's going to lend itself towards looking at how your relationships can assist you with your finances. Get consulting, having a tax help, having, someone help you if you're trying to get a loan, repair your credit, anything like that. Pairing up with someone may be what most helps you resolve your financial issues at this time. And if you have any financial consciousness that is leading you towards continued lack, look for Margaret Lynch's YouTube channel. She's got a ton of free stuff. She's one of my favorite resources for fixing your financial consciousness. She was an engineer and she turned into a coach, and she uses the EFT technique, which has been scientifically proven to have all kinds of effects on the immune system, on the nervous system, on the cardiovascular system, on the emotional state. And she uses that to help reconstruct your financial reality. So this may be a time that you can use that Mars border collie obsessive nature to focus on cleaning up your financial situations. Okay, so then we also have on August 9th, a full moon at 17 degrees of Aquarius. And for you, that's going to be in your 6th house of health, pets, animals, your day-to-day routine. If you're looking to give a pet a forever home, the second half of the month, especially August 26th and afterwards, has less of the retrograde energy, but sometimes your angel animals have a different timeline than you think. So if something comes in sooner, you don't have to refuse it. Just kind of, be more aware of what you're agreeing to, what you're getting yourself into, and that kind of thing. But, this does rule animals and wellness routines, supplements, doctor's appointments, blood work, all of that kind of thing. And maybe this is a good time for you to consider doing your yearlies, especially August 26th and after, because it's, more of a chance that you'll get clear results. When you do blood work for the first time in a retrograde, sometimes you don't get as clear a picture as if you wait until the energy is a little bit more clear for communication. Okay, so if you resonate with how I teach and you want to learn astrology, go to beastropro.com, beastropro.com. Whether you want to just help yourself and your friends and family, or whether you want to earn money from being an astrologer, I can teach you how to do that. Many students come to me having already learned astrology before, but they still can't tie it together in a coherent way to read charts, and I specialize in that. So whether you're a newbie or whether you have a history of studying, I can help you reach your goals with astrology. beastropro.com, beastropro.com. If you want to better understand the recent changes of Pluto moving into a new sign, Uranus moving into a new sign, Jupiter moving into a new sign, Saturn and Neptune moving into new signs, check out my personalized outer planet transit report at anniebclarity.com. Annie, the letter B, clarity.com. If you like the dates, I gave you a bunch of them. Also know in the days around the 1st and 2nd is a cluster of nuisance, stressful energies. And again, from around the 24th to the 27th, there's another cluster. But all the other points are mostly really just great aspects. It's a little bump around the 8th and 9th also. But otherwise, we've got, especially in the second half of the month, but scattered throughout the month, really sweet aspects. If you want to see those dates and know more about that, go to anniehelpsyou.com. Put your name and email address in, get the welcome letter, click on the archive link, and put in August 2025 astrology. Halfway down that newsletter will be the sweet and salty dates, and then the second half of the newsletter is dedicated towards expanding on my favorite ones and the ones to be most awareful and careful of. I hope you have a wonderful month and that the transformation that is afoot is something that you're ready for, or that you have the strength to move through if you don't feel ready. Either way, this is a very big time for Virgos that you can really redo everything in your life and have those timelines collapse and step into, your next up-leveled experience. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.